Here we go. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. It is a beautiful Thursday, March 27th, and there is plenty to talk about on the Niners front, especially after the height of NFL free agency and as we look ahead to the 2025 NFL Draft, which is coming up in a little less than a month. A lot to get to here on the program. As always, we will be doing a mailbag, taking your questions. So if you want to hop on board and join the show, a couple of ways for you to do that. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Therefore, all of the comments that come in, producer Chip, who's rolling with me to my left, able to filter through all of those to pop your questions up so that we can answer them on the live show here. Or if you send in a super chat, we will answer your questions first. You never know when Dragon Slayer is going to slay the chat, as he's become an absolute legend here on the Niners Report. So it's Thursday, opening day across Major League Baseball. If you're a San Francisco Giants fan, I'm sure you're watching that game right now, keeping tabs on what's happening across the baseball slate. But I'm ready to talk some San Francisco 49ers, and we have a show that is not going to disappoint any of you. 162 people watching live so far. If you're ready to talk some Niners, I want everybody to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Shout out to the recent commenter club, Joshua, Nick Graham, Goat, Ty Man the Buckeye, Jonathan, Blade, Joe Carmack, all in the building right now. I see Chico Curry is here. Shrimper Niner saying this offensive line is a priority for San Francisco. I agree. Now we're up to 170 people watching live, 28 likes. We should be able to get to 100 likes as soon as possible. So again, as you come in here, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and let's start the official show right now. All right, let's get it. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and coming up here on today's show, some intriguing draft news as we take a look ahead to the 2025 NFL Draft, which is coming up in about a month from Green Bay, Wisconsin. By the way, here on this show, we'll be live for every single day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every round, every selection. So be sure to join our draft coverage. And of course, in the lead up to the draft, we're giving you all types of information pertaining to the Niners draft. And on today's show, some of the initial pre-draft visits are now known, and the prospects who the Niners are meeting with are pretty exciting. In particular, two players who we're talking about on today's program. Before we take a look at those two players, whether or not they're good options for San Francisco come draft time, we're closing in on another milestone. Ladies and gentlemen, how about this? 800 people away from 160,000 subscribers. So if you want Niners shows like this every single day year-round, that's informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking coverage where you have a voice, be sure to lock us in and hit that sub button. So those two pre-draft visits that we know as of now for San Francisco, as they've kept things a little bit under the vest since the NFL Combine as far as prospects who are going to head to Santa Clara for these pre-draft visits. Mike Green, Marshall edge rusher, going to meet with the Niners. So too is Harold Fannin Jr., a tight end at a Bowling Green State, who had arguably the best single season in college football history for a tight end. Scouting reports, information, analysis, and opinions on these two players coming up here over the next several minutes. And, of course, we'll start off with Mike Green here. Really intriguing player, but does come with some question marks. He started his college career at Virginia. He was there in 2021, 2022, got suspended for the entire 2022 season, and then after that he transferred to Marshall. So he went from ACC football to a lower level of football, and the last two seasons he played with Marshall. First team All-American, though, in 2024, Sun Belt Player of the Year this past season as well. So ACC to the Sun Belt, and he had 17 sacks and 23 tackles for loss. Both of those numbers led all players in college football. the questions around him, some legal concerns, some character issues. He's twice been accused of sexual assault, one time in high school, another time at Virginia. A lot of speculation that that's why he transferred. He denied that, but he was suspended by Virginia back in 2022. He did address this directly at the NFL Combine, so I do give him credit for that. He said there's accusations out there. I've never been questioned. I've never been asked. Nobody ever asked me a question about what happened before I departed from Virginia. It was just accusations that caused me to leave. I've done nothing wrong. You can ask anybody that knows me how I am. I think what everybody just needs to know is I'm not this guy that everybody's trying to portray me to be. That's online. That's talking about something that they don't know about. Even with those character concerns, I took a look at where some of the top NFL draft analysts have Mike Green on their respective big boards. And what that means is where they have Mike Green ranked among all draft prospects going into the 2025 draft. And so Mel Kiper has Mike Green as his 15th best player. Daniel Jeremiah, 21st. Dane Brugler, higher than them both at 12th. And those are three of the top NFL draft analysts out there. In Mel Kiper's scouting report for Mike Green, here's what he had to share. Green, who led the FBS in sacks this past year, extremely explosive off the edge, shows good bend, but his game isn't all speed. He also displayed power at the Senior Bowl. Green also knows how to seal the edge against the run and pursues well laterally. But what I love most about his game is how he mixes up his pass rush moves. Green was an ultra-explosive and productive edge rusher for the Thundering Herd. This coming from Daniel Jeremiah. He jumped on the radar with an outstanding performance against Ohio State in September and continued to dominate throughout the entire campaign. He's continued to add weight over the last year and checked in at over 250 pounds at the Reese's Senior Bowl. More from Jeremiah here. In the pass game, has an excellent get-off. He can convert speed to power. He has quick hands and wins with a dip rip on the edge. He has enjoyed success with spin moves, but he gets a little bit too reliant on them at times. I love his effort to keep working and refuses to stay blocked. Lastly, in the run game, he knocks back tight ends at the point of attack. He can pop and separate to free himself for tackles. Very disruptive on stunts and games. Overall, Green is a very gifted pass rusher and more than holds his own against the run. Lastly, Dane Brugler on Mike Green had to say this. He said, too many people are hung up on Green's size instead of appreciating his edge speed, play violence, and the ways in which he impacts the game. He has serious juice as a pass rusher to bend, capture the corner, and finish at the quarterback. He might not have 35-inch arms to easily out-leverage blocks in the run game, but he plays with the pop to shock and separate, which allows him to impact the ball carrier. Also led FBS this year with 17 sacks. So the constant theme and the consistent theme among those draft analysts, and I share a lot of the same opinions, and it's this. He has a quick get off. He has really good bend coming off that edge, really good explosion. I like the array of pass rushing moves. He's underrated against the run. He's not just a pass rushing specialist. And the knock on him has been that he's undersized, yet he's weighed in at more than 250 pounds. If it weren't for the character concerns, I think we're talking about Mike Green as a player who's going to go inside the top 10. Because of those character concerns, he could fall to the Niners at number 11. At the NFL Combine, limited athletic testing for him because he didn't partake in a lot of drills, but at 225 pounds, he did 28 reps on the bench press. That's a very impressive number. As for what he did throughout his college career, suspended in 2022, so he didn't play that season. In 2021, he played 6 games for Virginia. Limited workload, of course. 1 sack, 2 pressures. The last 2 years, 2023, 9 TFLs, 4.5 sacks, 30 pressures. The pressure numbers, impressive there. Goes to show you he was able to get after the quarterback. And then in 2024, one of the best seasons that any defender had in the college football landscape. 23 TFLs leading the country, 17 sacks leading the nation with 59 pressures, and disrupted 2 with those 3 forced fumbles. So, a difficult question to answer here because there is definitely some risk, and I like how the Niners are bringing him in. If you really like the player, yet you have some concerns about him, bring him in for a pre-draft visit and see if you like him. See what his personality is. So would you take Mike Green at number 11 overall? T for take, P for pass. Let me know down in the comment section right now. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in the game and the only DFS app that you should be using. It has more than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, and all you have to do, pick more or less on 2 or more player stat projections, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Pick more, pick less. Run your game with Prize Picks. And when you use that link down below, prizepicks.com/CLNS, you create an account, use the code CLNS, and you can get $50 instantly when you play $5, and then you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Some selections that we like for the upcoming football season: Jared Goff, less on the passing yards. Travis Kelce, less on the receiving yards. And then Jaden Daniels, less on the rushing yards. Get $50 when you play 5. It's a no-brainer. Sign up with Prize Picks today and run your game. We'll put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of today's San Francisco 49ers report. As for Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green State, in scouting him, fantastic, reliable hands. Rarely drops balls, and when you throw it into his vicinity, into his stratosphere, oftentimes he's coming down with that football. Very impressive. I do have some questions about him. Can he beat man coverage? Because I do have some athletic concerns. Only ran a 4.7 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. He's also not a great blocker. And is he a tweener at only 6'3"? Might have to play fullback. Might not be a traditional tight end at the next level. Those are some concerns and some of the strengths that I've witnessed in scouting Harold Fannin in the pre-draft process. But man, you turn on the tape, and I know that he played at Bowling Green State, but his year in 2024, regardless of the level of competition, incredible. You know, in 13 games played as a tight end in an offense that prioritized getting the ball to him and finding ways to get him open, he was targeted 150 times as a tight end. We're not talking about an ex-boundary wide receiver, and he had 117 catches. He had nearly 1,600 yards, 13.3 yards per catch, 10 touchdowns, and look, 4 drops when targeted 150 times. That's where the good hands come from. Dane Brugler on Fannin has him as one of his top tight ends in this draft class that is a deep tight end draft class. In an offense designed to weaponize its tight end, Fannin transitioned from high school safety to college, where he played tight end, and in 2024 had arguably the greatest tight end season in FBS history. Set the position's single-season record for catches, 117, and receiving yards, 1,555. He catches everything and shows a unique feel for creating as a ball carrier. That's another plus with Fannin. He can create with the ball in his hands. And that makes up for the lack of juice, the lack of speed, the lack of athleticism and overall size. But I just get really worried about this because when you thought about the production, you're thinking, oh, he could be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But with the athletic testing, I just don't think that you can reach on the player that early. I think he's a day 3 guy. A 7.82 relative athletic score grade, only 6'3", 241, bench 225 22 times. Don't necessarily always care about that as a tight end, but you do need to block a little bit if you're playing tight end. The vertical wasn't good, the broad wasn't good, and then the 4.7 40-yard dash, just not fast enough. The arm length, 32 inches, so some scouts will look at that and they'll be like, not sure he can be a good blocker because he can't disengage. NFL.com scouting report from Lance Zierlein saying this: enigmatic prospect featuring record-breaking single-season catch production despite a straight-legged playing style. His lack of functional bend forces him on more linear tracks and cuts his route tree in half, but it doesn't keep him from getting around the field and through the pattern with good speed. His hands are automatic. He's a competitive runner after the catch, but he needs to prove that he can beat tight press man coverage. He won't block much, but his ability to stretch the field from the slot and make the tough catches gives him a shot as a potential tight end too with upside. So obviously the Niners could be looking for a tight end too. I know they signed Luke Farrell in free agency, but if they want a depth piece and a player who they can develop, Fannin can be that guy. He's not going to beat you vertically, but he will come down with some contested catches because he is really tough at the catch point. But with all those concerns that I have, I think he's a day 3 pick. Obviously, the Niners showing some interest, though, in bringing him in for a pre-draft visit. Be sure to give me a follow, by the way, on social media, in addition to all of the Niners content that I put up here on YouTube, and we're hitting you with videos multiple times every single day. I also put out a lot of content on X and Instagram. It's at Chase_Senior. All right, would you take Mike Green at number 11? We talked about him a few moments ago. T for take, P for pass. Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber home runs. How about it? Yeah, Schwarber just went yard 2 to give the Phillies a 2-1 lead. T for take, P for pass. What are the people saying? I see Kevin Wilson saying pass on Mike Green. Hugo De Jesus saying pass as well. Chico Curry said not fast enough for the NFL. I think he's an NFL player, but I don't think that he's a star tight end. And in evaluating him against the other tight ends, when you think about Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland and Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor, it's really not close in my opinion. Gunnar Helm out of Texas, another really good tight end. Those are the tight ends who I'm prioritizing if I'm Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and this Niners front office. If you do want to be a part of our mailbag, by the way, use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. If we do get enough questions in, we'll stay live and we'll do a mailbag to chop it up with everybody. Always enjoy opening up the floor to take your questions here on the show. Coming up next, Matt Miller, NFL draft scout on X, released a full 7-round mock draft for all 32 teams across the National Football League. So, of course, the purpose of what we're about to do, who does he have going to the San Francisco 49ers? I put out my first Niners mock draft last week. You can check that out on the channel. A lot of my thoughts haven't changed from that, but I actually think that Matt Miller crushed it with his mock draft, and we're about to go through that right now. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. 200 plus people watching live, 66 likes. Let's get to 100 likes here on the stream, and with that, let's get to segment number 2. Let's do some draft talk here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What we're getting into here today, a full 7-round Niners mock draft. ESPN NFL draft analyst Matt Miller, NFL draft scout on X, did a full 7-round mock draft for all 32 teams across the National Football League. And I actually really like the players that he chose to go to the San Francisco 49ers. And we're going to go through all of those players coming up here throughout the program. And let's just begin with this. The biggest remaining needs for the Niners after the peak of free agency, looking ahead to the NFL draft, still need to improve this offensive line. Niners didn't make any major moves along the offensive line this offseason or in free agency. So right tackle, center, and left guard are 3 positions that I think the Niners need to upgrade. They love Colt McKivitz. I don't. They like Jake Brendel. I don't. Aaron Banks left. They're bringing back Ben Barch. I like his upside. It could be Ben Barch, Spencer Burford competing there at left guard, but I just don't think San Francisco is good enough along the offensive line. Along the defensive line, goodbye Malik Collins. Goodbye Leonard Floyd. The Niners have let go of a lot of defensive linemen. And so they don't have a lot of depth there. They need some more talent too, an influx of talent. So edge and defensive tackle, two massive needs for this football team. And then elsewhere, linebacker, cornerback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We flip the page to the Niners. 2025 NFL draft picks, they are loaded with some really good draft capital here, ladies and gentlemen. First on the clock, first round, number 11 overall. They have a premium second-round selection at 43. They have 2 third-round picks, 75 and 100, 2 fourth-rounders, 113 and 138, 2 fifth-rounders, 147 and 160. And then they have 3 seventh-round picks after not taking anybody in the 6th round as of right now at 227, 249, and 252. As for the players who Matt Miller chose, if he were running the front office for the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to do in-depth scouting profiles on a lot of these players here. First round, 11th overall, cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan. Second round, defensive tackle Walter Nolan, 43 overall to the Niners out of Ole Miss. In round 3, the Niners go offensive line with Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota and Cameron Williams out of Texas. In round 4, Savion Jones, the edge rusher out of LSU. Round 4 again, the Niners go running back with R.J. Harvey out of UCF. With 2 of the 5th round picks, one, Thomas Fedone, a tight end out of Nebraska, and then linebacker Cody Simon, by way of Ohio State, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame in round 7, center Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina, one of the more fascinating players in this draft class, and then safety Hunter Waller out of Wisconsin. Let's go back to the Niners' first pick here from Matt Miller, and that's Will Johnson out of Michigan. Probably the second best corner in this draft class behind Travis Hunter. Bigger size than Travis Hunter, that is for sure. Here's Miller's reasoning for why he went Johnson to the Niners at 11. What do you get for a team that lost 9 starters this offseason? The best player on the board. Johnson is that player. A seamless replacement for Charvarius Ward, who would be a true homegrown talent at cornerback 1, something the Niners haven't had in ages. I don't know. You could say Deommodore Lenoir might be that guy. Johnson was limited to 6 games in 2024 with a toe injury, but had 2 interceptions, both of which he returned for touchdowns. His playmaking ability and savvy ball skills and zone coverage remind me of Trevon Diggs. When healthy, Johnson is one of the best defenders in the nation. The Niners can bet on a bounce back in health and that Johnson will develop better tackling. What's interesting is that a lot of NFL draft analysts have the Niners going corner at number 11. Not offensive line and not defensive line. Whether that be Jahdae Barron out of Texas, whether that be Will Johnson out of Michigan. And so it's interesting because that is a need too, but it's not as big of a need as the trenches are, in my opinion. Now, those 6 games played for Johnson in 2024, 14 tackles, 1 TFL, 5 pass breakups in those 6 games, 2 picks, and he brought both of them back for touchdowns. His coverage numbers, he was targeted 26 times, gave up 16 catches, 195 yards, no touchdowns given up, and a quarterback rating when targeted of 52.6. When he did play in 2023 on that loaded Michigan defense that won the national championship, the numbers were very good. 8 pass breakups in 12 games, 4 picks, a quarterback rating when targeted of 30.9. He was thrown toward 37 times and only gave up 17 completions, and once again, 0 touchdowns given up in coverage. Give me your thoughts before we continue to push forward on today's show. What position should the Niners target at number 11 overall? Share your opinions with me. To the second round for the Niners, a player who I really like, who I think would be a great scheme fit for San Francisco, and that's Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. Here's what Miller had to say here. With Javon Hargrave having moved on, the 49ers have a need at both tackle spots in their 4-3 defense. When dialed in, Nolan can be a difference maker at 3 technique with fantastic first step quickness and proven production, 14 TFLs, 6.5 sacks in 2024. If the Niners get Walter Nolan at 43, holy value. I think that he's worthy of being a first-round pick. I love the motor that he plays with, the physicality that he plays with, how violent he is, and how good he is as a pass rusher and as a run stopper. 13 games last year, 48 tackles, 14 TFLs, 6.5 sacks, 35 pressures from the interior with 3 pass breakups. So the instincts there to jump up at the line of scrimmage and bat some balls down, that's impressive to me, and 2 fumble recoveries. And so this is a player who I think can give you snaps right from the go. I would be excited to see how Chris Kocurek and Robert Saleh can develop him. It comes at a massive position of need, and I just think that he can be a really good pro for a very long time. As for Ariante Ursary, the tackle from Minnesota, the 49ers would choose their eventual Trent Williams replacement in the powerful, crafty Ursary, who has developed upside with 5.01 speed at 331 pounds. And you think about Trent Williams, right? Big body, really athletic, light feet, agile. When he gets out in space, he can really run. This is a player here who can do a lot of the same things, and I would like the value with getting him at this point in the draft, and you can continue to mold him into a really good player. And if you're a young offensive tackle, what better player to learn from than Trent Williams? Very good relative athletic score grade here, 9'3", 6'6", 331 pounds, and to run nearly a sub-5 40-yard dash at that size really is incredible. The Pro Football Focus grades, overall grade of 77.5, pass blocking grade of 77.3, a run blocking grade of 73.6. And then you look at some of the more in-depth numbers here. He only gave up 1 sack in 2024, 1 quarterback hit, 10 hurries, okay number, not awful though, with 3 committed penalties. Building along the trenches. That is what the Niners need to do here in this draft. And I like what Matt Miller did because he goes Ursary with 1 pick here in the 3rd round. And then they go back to offensive tackle with another player who I think can be good over the long haul. And that's Cameron Williams out of Texas, who would be a good scheme fit because Steve Sarkisian runs a lot of the same offensive concepts as Kyle Shanahan. And Matt Miller alluding to that. The offensive line in San Francisco could be a round 1 need given the current roster. Adding Williams at right tackle in round 3 is a value and a scheme fit thanks to his power in the run game. His tape can be a little bit inconsistent from time to time. He's a big dude who sometimes will end up on his butt, and you don't want to see that happen. The penalties are also a concern for me, 16 of them. He did give up 5 sacks of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning last year, but he graded out pretty well. And it's not like you're taking him in the 1st round, right? You're taking him in the 3rd round. So an overall grade of 67.4, pass blocking grade 72.6, run blocking grade of 70.8. And then furthermore, the 18 hurries, again, I don't know if Cameron Williams is a player who plays right away. I think Ursary potentially could play right away. I more so think Williams is that get him in the 3rd round, good value guy who you could develop into a solid player down the road. I mean, look how quickly it came into gear for a player like Jalen Moore, where it took him a little while, but then in 2024, boom, all of a sudden, he's replacing Trent Williams and performing very well. Savion Jones, edge rusher out of LSU. You look at that body type and you're thinking he should dominate the college football landscape. The production was really just okay from a sack perspective. 4.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks the last 3 years. And so far here, the players who we've talked about, Will Johnson in the 1st round, Walter Nolan in the 2nd round, Ariante Ursary in the 3rd round, in addition to Cameron Williams in that 3rd round, and then edge rusher Savion Jones out of LSU in the 4th. And you need a corner, you need defensive linemen, you need offensive tackles, and again, you need another defensive lineman. So best player available, good value, and positions of need. That's why I like what Matt Miller did with this mock. Still more to get to here. Rounds 5 through 7 coming up. But this Niners polo, available now, was $80, but for the faithful, on today's show, it is on sale for $43. All you have to do is use that link down below, chatsports.com/49polo. That's chatsports.com/49polo. It'll redirect you to Fanatics. Use that link. You get it. Fanatics knows that Chat Sports, 49ers Report, and Chase Sr. sent you. I think at some point in this draft, the Niners are going to go running back, and Matt Miller has R.J. Harvey out of Central Florida, UCF, going to San Francisco here. And you look at the red, not good on the relative athletic score, 5'8", 205, 16 reps on the bench press, not ideal. The overall grade, though, and score is solid, 8.41. That's in the green. The vertical, explosion. Broad, explosion, in the green. The speed, outside zone is what Kyle Shanahan is running. You see hole, you hit hole, you take off, and you take it to the cribbo. 4.4 40-yard dash speed for R.J. Harvey. That right there is pretty good. And sometimes we overrate the athletic testing, and sometimes you just have to look at the tape. And Harvey was very productive at UCF. Last year in 2024, 232 carries, nearly 1,600 yards, almost 7 yards per carry. He can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. 20 catches for 267 yards, and he's also sure-handed. He had 25 total touchdowns a year ago with only one fumble, and there's been consistent production here. Red flag with the medicals. He did tear his ACL in 2021. I like how he's bounced back, though. In 2022, almost 7 yards per carry, 796 yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2023, 1,400 yards, once again, over 6 yards per carry and 16 touchdowns. And then in 2024, the numbers that we just broke down. Receiving-wise, there is pretty steady production here, and Kyle Shanahan always likes a back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. That's part of the reason why he never trusted Jordan Mason. 22 catches, 19-20 his last 3 years in college. And I think it's important for San Francisco to draft the running back for the reasons that I've talked about here on the show, but also Christian McCaffrey, older, coming off an injury-plagued season in which he had bilateral Achilles tendonitis and a PCL injury. Isaac Orendo, physical freak, 4'3" guy at well north of 200 pounds, but he too is often injured. I also think at some point the Niners should draft a quarterback, develop a quarterback, see what he can become over time. And I don't love Riley Leonard, honestly. I'd rather go Will Howard or Kyle McCord, but because it's a thin quarterback class, those players might go a little bit earlier. Riley Leonard didn't really throw it that much for Notre Dame last year, but he has good size. When he was at Duke prior to Notre Dame, you saw some ability. He's a really good athlete who can run the football effectively. He completed under 67% of his passes, 2,800 plus yards, but he did add 906 rushing yards to his tally with 38 total touchdowns, 8 picks, 1 fumble. His career passing numbers, you do get concerned here at the lack of times that he was asked to throw the football. In 2022, he threw for almost 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. In 2023, he only played 7 games, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. He transfers to Notre Dame after he played under Mike Elko at Duke. And under Marcus Freeman, he was a winning quarterback, but the passing production wasn't awesome. What does stand out is his running ability. And his last full season at Duke, 124 carries, almost 700 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns on the ground. And then in 2024, those impressive numbers with 17 touchdowns on the ground. So a dual threat quarterback who needs a lot of work as a passer. I think he's best suited to be a practice squad guy to start and then eventually turn himself into a backup who Kyle Shanahan can develop into a player who can make the 53. One of the more fascinating players in this draft is Willie Lampkin, the center out of North Carolina. His measurables are fascinating, but the tape, the nastiness, the wrestler's attitude, the physicality, willing to get grimy, grinding in the trenches. Those are qualities that I love in an offensive lineman. But how about this? The measurables for Willie Lampkin. His relative athletic score grade on a scale from 0 to 10, a 4.05. A big reason for that, he is under 280 pounds at 279, standing there at 5'10". He did run a 5.2 140-yard dash at that speed. You'd hope that he's a little bit quicker, given the weight is under 280 pounds, but he plays with this nasty streak. The vertical leap is not good. This is a classic case of when you watch him on tape, you're like, okay. When you saw him at the Senior Bowl, he was throwing cats down to the ground, and it was impressive how he was going about it. But at 279 pounds, like when Jason Kelce was drafted more than a decade ago, he was looked at as way too small, and he was hovering around 290. All these years later, Willie Lampkin is 279. But at this point in the draft, I'm taking a chance in the 7th round on a player like that because I love the tape. Grade the mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know down in the comment section. You always have a voice on the show, and we appreciate all of you. Super chat coming in from Boxing Fan, $5 here. Harold Fannin could have been the Juice replacement instead of signing Luke Farrell. Yeah, you know, the Luke Farrell contract is a lot better than what we thought. Not as much guaranteed money. It could pretty much be a one-year deal worth, I think, around $6 million. And Fannin could be a fullback at the next level. I'm not sure he's going to be a tight end at the next level. The thing that's working against him, there aren't a lot of teams in the NFL who utilize a fullback. Ravens, Niners, two of the few. And at the lack of height, the lack of speed, it might be better for Fannin to play fullback as compared to tight end, because I also don't know if he can beat man coverage. And when you run a 4.7, I know that he had over 100 catches for nearly 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns. But at the NFL level, if you just put a nickel corner on him, I'm not sure he's going to be able to beat that player. We do have a mailbag coming up, by the way. If we get enough questions, we'll do a mailbag segment. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Coming up next here on the show, the Niners win total has been released, and it might surprise a lot of people.
Hashtag 49ers, get him in. 4 questions so far.
4 questions
need
so
more.
Far. Probably need about 8 questions if we want to do a mailbag, and they have to be some good questions. So get them in. So coming up next, going to take a look at the Niners win total for 2025, a look at the Niners opponents, and what the Niners have to do to bounce back. That's going to be segment number 3 as we keep it rolling live here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Appreciate everybody for tuning in here to the show. Coming up here on the San Francisco 49ers Report, my name is Chase Sr. So glad you're hanging out here with me. I want to take a look at the surprising Niners win total, which was just released for the 2025 season. Also going to take a gander at the Niners' 2025 opponents, working off of what their win total is, because that could play a factor into why their win total is what it is. And I'm going to go through several reasons and several things that the Niners have to do in order to bounce back this upcoming season, to flush that 6-11 campaign from last year and make the playoffs, get back in the dance in 2025. Today's poll question is naturally this. I want to hear from everybody who's watching this show. How many games will the 49ers win in 2025? Drop your predictions down below in the comment section right now. And let's begin with the NFL win totals released by ESPN Bet. The 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl, the 2 highest win totals. Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs at 11.5. The Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, bona fide contenders in the AFC, led by Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, also there at 11.5. The Washington Commanders, 10.5. And then you see the San Francisco 49ers after having lost several marquee players, multiple starters, really undergoing a massive roster overhaul and a lot of changes, 10.5 wins. Same as the Commanders, same as the Chargers, same as the Lions and the Bengals. That's pretty telling right there. The Buccaneers at 9.5, Rams at 9.5, Texans, Packers, Broncos also 9.5. The Seattle Seahawks, I think that's pretty high at 8.5. Of course, going into the NFL draft, a lot can still happen. Other teams had 8.5. You have the Steelers, Vikings, Dolphins, Cowboys, Bears. Lastly, the Cardinals. Then the next tier, Falcons and Patriots at 7.5. I think the Patriots are a good bet to go over the 7.5. I think they battle for an AFC wildcard spot. Jags at 6.5. Colts at 6.5. Panthers 6.5. Then the Titans, Jets, Saints, all there at 5.5. And some of these are pretty interesting when you go through them. Some of them you see why they're as high or low as they are. Some you're like, interesting. And then the last three teams here, Raiders 5.5, first year in the Pete Carroll regime. Giants at 4.5. I think they're going to be awful. And I think that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are going to get fired after this season. And the Cleveland Browns at 4.5. Myles Garrett said, all I care about is winning. I just want a Super Bowl. And then the Browns said, we'll give you $40 million per year. Biggest contract ever for a defensive player. And Myles Garrett said, that's fine. Kenny Pickett could be my quarterback. 4.5 wins for Cleveland. And this is interesting pertaining to the Niners, right? Because of how weird of an offseason it has been. Yet the win total is high. And the Super Bowl 60 odds and NFC West odds are very interesting. And we talked about this here on the show, but the Niners have the 6th best odds to win the Super Bowl. It feels as though this offseason, the Niners are rebuilding. It seems as though they're kind of punting in some ways for the 2025 season. But ESPN bet odds makers don't believe that to be the case. 17-1 odds to win the Super Bowl for San Francisco. That's ahead of a team like the Washington Commanders. And so you have the Eagles there at plus 650 coming off their Super Bowl championship. Ravens at 7-1, Chiefs at 7-1, Bills at 750, Lions at 950, and the Niners there at 17-1. And they are favorites right now to win the NFC West, which I disagree with. I think the Rams are the better team. They have the better quarterback, Matthew Stafford, the better coach, Sean McVay, the better defense that's young and should be better. And they really gave the Eagles everything they could handle and were the most competitive team that the Super Bowl champion Eagles faced in the entire playoffs. But plus 130, Rams plus 175, this should get fans excited. Because as weird as it's been, as bad as you might feel, the Niners could surprise a lot of people. Now, of course, as we've talked about here on the show, because San Francisco went 6-11 in 2024, suffering all those injuries, coaching was bad, star players did not perform, it was ugly in every way, shape, and form. But because they finished dead last in the NFC West, they're now set up with one of the easiest schedules in the National Football League, and they're going to play a last-place schedule. Their home opponents, the divisional teams, Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, they're going to host the Falcons and Panthers, both very winnable games, and then the Jags, Titans, and Bears. Outside of the divisional games where you never know what's going to happen, the Niners should win 5 of those games at home because they're still better than those teams. Bears are going to be improved, but San Francisco should still be victorious in that game, depending on still what happens in the NFL draft. And then the away schedule. Again, NFC West foes, Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams. Niners will travel to New Orleans. Great place to visit if you want to go for a weekend to catch your Niners. Great city to be in for a weekend, not any more than that. Buccaneers, competitive team last year. Texans, Kyle Shanahan against D'Amico Ryans. Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen on the hot seat. New York Giants with Russell Wilson. And then the Cleveland Browns. So you see a pathway for the Niners to win double-digit games. A lot more to get to here on the show. Coming up what the Niners have to do, what has to happen for San Francisco to get back into the playoffs. But be sure to hit that subscribe button here on the show. We're closing in on another special milestone of 160,000 subscribers. We're 800 people away. So if you want Niner shows every single day that are going to make you a smarter football fan, a smarter Niner fan, where you become a more insightful viewer of the Niners, where you get your brain working a little bit, where sometimes we can make you laugh and entertain you, hit that sub button right now. This Niners polo was $80, now on sale for just $43. You can get yours today at chatsports.com/49polo. You've seen me wear the similar style for a lot of the watch parties that I do. A lot of people have asked, Chase, where'd you get that? Fanatics. So use that link down below. It'll take you to Fanatics, and you can get yours today. All right, to the back half of the show. These following things must happen in order for the San Francisco 49ers to bounce back from last year's abysmal 6-11 season to get back to the playoffs in 2025. First of all, the Niners have to nail the 2025 NFL draft. And not only do they have to pick the right players, those players right from the jump as rookies will have to step in and play key roles for this football team in 2025. Because right now, San Francisco has so many holes. They don't have enough talent and depth, and they're heavily leaning on these rookies to step up and play well this upcoming season. Number two, Kyle Shanahan has to coach better. I thought 2024 was the worst coaching year that Kyle Shanahan has ever had. In the red zone, the Niners were awful. Play calling, play designing, and execution. Game management continues to be an area where Kyle Shanahan is lackluster. And the team preparedness, week in and week out, they didn't look prepared or motivated, especially late in the year when they fell apart at the seams. It was an ugly end to the season. And I thought from training camp to the end of the year, Kyle Shanahan never had this team ready to go, and there was just a dark cloud hovering over this team, and that falls on the head coach. To the quarterback, I know that there were a lot of factors behind why Brock Purdy struggled last season. Bad offensive line play, injuries to marquee players, but Brock Purdy has to bounce back, and Brock Purdy has to ball out, especially if the Niners give him a contract extension between $50 and $60 million. Go out there and prove that you're a franchise quarterback. Go out there and prove that you're elite. You did it in 2022. You did it in 2023. You didn't do it in 2024. What was concerning last year is that Purdy put the ball in harm's way too often at moments in the game where he made dumb decisions which cost the Niners games. Can't commit turnovers like that in those situations. So really across the board, Purdy just has to bounce back and play better. Christian McCaffrey is going to have to stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's one of the best overall players in the entire National Football League. So special, so dynamic, one of one, a threat to take it to the house anytime he gets his hands on the football. The versatility to his game is very special too, where he can run it in between the tackles, out to the edge, catch balls out of the backfield, and as a slot receiver. In 2023, top 5 in MVP voting, NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Since the trade of McCaffrey, he has changed the complexion of this offense, but there are big health concerns with him. And this is after the Niners gave him a contract extension and a pay raise. But in his late 20s, coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis, a PCL injury, with the injury history that he has, it's not promised that he's going to stay healthy in 2025. But if he does, it goes a long way toward the Niners getting back into the playoffs and this offense looking like it can look. A boost from Brandon Ayuk would also be huge for the Niners. In 2023, he was a top 10 wide receiver in the game. Number 2 in yards per catch, analytically a top 5 wide receiver. What he did, given the lack of targets that other receivers get, like CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, very impressive. And his route running is so clean. But coming off that bad knee injury, in which he shredded and tore multiple ligaments in that knee, one, we're not sure when he's going to come back. Two, what type of player he's going to be. But if he returns close to that 2023 form, where he had gotten better every year that he was in the NFL, it improves this pass game. He has a great connection with Brock Purdy, and it just adds more depth and talent to that wide receiver room. Can the offensive line improve? Run blocking and in pass protection. That has to happen. If it weren't for Brock Purdy being so mobile in 2024, the offensive line numbers would have been even worse. Ricky Pearsall, because of the uncertainty around Brandon Ayuk and because the Niners traded away Deebo Samuel, has to take a big jump. He recovered from that gunshot injury. He recovered from the shoulder injury. He was also dealing with the hamstring injury prior to the year. Toward the end of the season, you saw some pop. You saw some juice. Niners can't afford to whiff on another first-round pick. They need Pearsall to step up and play well this season. To the defensive side of the ball, a reason why the Niners brought in Robert Saleh, great defensive mind. They want more energy on that sideline. They want players to develop better. Some of these players that they're bringing in on these low-cost deals, they want Robert Saleh, with how much they're paying him, to maximize those players, put them in a position to succeed, and have this defense getting back to how it played from 2019 through 2022. The Niners have missed that. They've been bad against the run. They've had bad breakdowns at moments. Robert Saleh has to turn this defense around and have them not quite elite, but even middle of the pack will help this team greatly. Nick Bosa has to have a huge year, and he has to stay healthy. If he would have stayed healthy last year, it would have been another double-digit sack season, but you're making $34 million per year, and you don't have a lot of talent or depth along that defensive line. You were looked at as one of the pillars and the building blocks of this organization. For Nick Bosa, have a big year, stay healthy, and he can be a big reason why this Niners defense improves. Because if they can't get after the quarterback, it could be a long season. These young defenders will have to make big strides. Bernardo Green, you played really well in year one. Can't have a sophomore slump. Niners need you. Deommodore Lenoir, you're a bargain at that contract. Continue your ascent. D. Winters, you're going to be asked to play more at that linebacker spot. What can you do? Out goes Dre Greenlaw, big shoes to fill. Evan Anderson, UDFA, good story last year. Can you make a sizable leap? Jair Brown, can you get back on track? Malik Mustafa, can you continue your development? Brant Boyer with the special teams unit. As far as DVOA and EPA, the Niners were bottom 3 last year. They had punts blocked and kicks blocked. Their punt and kick coverages were not good enough. Jake Moody really struggled. There were special teams breakdowns left and right. This offseason, the Niners have brought in a lot of really solid special teams players. And they brought in Brant Boyer to lead that unit. Improve it, Brant. Jake Moody can't be an absolute stiff. If he's on this team, he can't kick the ball like he did last year, where he cost the Niners a lot of points. So if the Niners do all of those things, they should be able to get back into the playoffs in 2025. If you enjoyed today's show, give me a real one down below. We appreciate you for supporting us as always. And make sure you subscribe. All right. Good stuff on the show, everybody. Recent Commenter Club, Gabeski, Hugo, Money Gang, Jay, G-Rod, Corona Guy, Trip Aces. How goes it? Let's just run through some of those questions here, Chip. And we can just answer some of those real quickly, and then we'll dip on out of here. We'll go through your questions here. Nathaniel, do you think that we should get Justin Simmons and possibly trade Purdy and our 11th pick and 2 second-rounders to the Titans for number 1, and we can get Cam Ward? I don't even think the Titans would do that. I think the Titans like Cam Ward so much that they wouldn't take all of that to pass up on the opportunity to draft Cam Ward. The other thing, too, that's underrated, if the Titans trade for Brock Purdy, they have to pay him 50 to 60 million. If they draft Cam Ward, he is affordable for the next 5 years, which allows you to really build your football team. So I wouldn't do that. As far as Justin Simmons goes, think about what the Niners have done at that safety spot. I think they might be set there, but Justin Simmons and Julian Blackmon are two veteran players who I think could really help out a team in 2025. Dietrich Mitchell, do we still have the kicker Mooney, or should I say Booney, still in our building? So Jake Moody still on the squad, and the pressure is on him going into this season. He was abysmal, terrible, as Charles Barkley would say, terrible last season. And I think at the very least, the Niners have to bring in some competition this summer to push him a little bit and to serve as an insurance policy. You can't go into 2025 with Jake Moody and the uncertainty around him and not have a backup plan. Chris Steele, not enough people speak about this, but the offensive players in these mock drafts, would they help out with the red zone efficiency, knowing last year the Niners ranked 31st? Yeah, you know what? I think like Kyle Shanahan play calling, play designing can help this red zone offense and the woes there. Brock Purdy can play better. This offensive line can protect better. They can stop committing dumb penalties. Luke Farrell, Kyle Juszczyk, they can help. And, of course, in the mock draft, yeah, you're hoping that these players can come in and perform, whether it's beating man coverage, finding soft spots in the zone, or whether it be the things that I talked about just seconds ago. But they got to get better in the red zone. That can't continue. It's a very bad trend. Chico Curry, what happens if Shedeur Sanders is the best player available at number 11? Do we draft him or do we pass on him? Look, if Shedeur Sanders is available at number 11 and the Niners really love the player, I think it might change their thoughts on Brock Purdy. I really do. Because if you're resetting the roster, you're resetting the organization, do you want to pay Purdy 50 to 60 million? Or do you want to draft Shedeur Sanders, maybe roll with Mac Jones in the meantime, if this is your reset year, develop Shedeur, and then he is extremely affordable for the next 5 years. A fraction of the price of what Brock Purdy is going to be. But the other issue, if you were to trade Brock Purdy, where are you trading him to? I mean, a lot of teams have their quarterback situations firm right now. A team that doesn't, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're not going to trade for Brock Purdy because he can't grip the ball in the cold weather. And playing in the AFC North, you're always playing it in inclement weather. So this late in the process, it might be hard to trade him. But I'm fascinated to see what the Niners might do at number 11 if Shedeur Sanders is there. Honestly, it increases the chances of them trading back. Hugo de Jesus, I don't think we need to waste a pick on a quarterback. We have so many positions to fill. What do you think about the quarterback room as it stands? I like the quarterback room as it stands. You know, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Tanner Mordecai. I'm always a fan of taking a quarterback to see what that quarterback can be, especially given the importance of that position. So if you like a quarterback in the 6th or 7th round, take a swing. Why not? Obviously, you're not going to take one early, and you're going to build up offensive line, defensive line, corner, and some other positions of need. But late in the draft, you always take a flyer to see if you can hit. Troy Morgan, what happens if they just cut Brandon Ayuk? They have to eat a massive dead money charge. And so if the Niners cut Brandon Ayuk, I'm pulling up the cap numbers here. If they cut him pre-June 1, that is $39 million in dead money for this year, $28 million in cap savings. Actually, I think that's in the red, so I don't even think you save anything. If you cut him post-June 1, it's $25 million in dead money. So you're just not going to cut Brandon Ayuk. If you want to get rid of him, you trade him because he's due that roster bonus for this year and next year on April 1 if he's on the roster. Leon Sandcastle, what an afro. Odd question. Do quarterback prospects take the S2 cognitive test on their pro days? And are the S2 scores released to the public? It's a good question. It's so in-depth that I'm going to pull up Grok to ask.
Good use of Grok here.
Yeah. Do quarterback prospects have to take an S2 score? Let's see here. See what I get here. Quarterback prospects are not required to take the S2 cognition test. It's not a mandatory part of the NFL draft evaluation process, like the physical measurements or medical exams. So there you go. And I don't think those results have to be released to the public, no. Hugo de Jesus again. What should CMC get as a draft pick if he was to get traded or a player swap? Man, at his age, given the injury history, the mileage on the tires, and the contract, a 4th-round pick, especially because it's a really deep running back class in 2025. So I just don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to net you a lot. And you can make the argument he earned the extension and the pay grade last offseason when he had no guaranteed money left on his deal. But you can also say it was a dumb move. The Philadelphia Eagles giving Saquon Barkley an extension, guaranteed money. A lot of risk there. He's 28 years old. Didn't love that either. But when a player does so much for you, sometimes you feel the need to reward them. And I get it to a certain degree. But business is not easy. Thanks to everybody for watching the show. Enjoy the rest of your Thursdays. Enjoy Major League Baseball opening day. Plenty of content to come all throughout the weekend. I'll be on Larry Krueger's show tomorrow, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. on the West Coast. We'll talk all things Niners, and we'll have some great videos on the channel throughout the weekend and over the next several days, because that's what we do.